Hello, good morning. My name is Mebrahtu Atewbrhan. Apologies that I am not able to participate in person and be in Washington, D.C. with you. Before starting my presentation, I'd like to thank Dr. Berhane Waldemikael and Dr. Daniel Hatay for extending the invitation, but also for making the effort for this conference to happen. I'd also like to thank the Eritrean community members in the Washington area for supporting the preparatory team, but also providing food and refreshments to the participants there. As you can see from the slide, my presentation is on local community marginalization in regards to protected area management in Eritrea. As you know, Eritrea has established two large national parks, the Dahalak Marine National Park and the Seminawi Bahari National Park, also sometimes called the Seminawi Dubawi Bahari National Park. So the main objective of the presentation or the paper that I am presenting is to look at these parks critically or objectively in terms of local community participation in the conservation efforts. But before going into the details of the presentation, I think it's important to provide a context by looking at what's happening in Eritrea. What I have outlined here, most of you know, is globally known what's happening in Eritrea. It's all top-down, is absolute control by the PFDJ totalitarian system. Whatever development is taking in Eritrea is completely extractive, is top-down, and all land and natural resource belong to the government or to the state, and local communities have no say. And conservation is not different. What's unique for Eritrea, all of us, we know that there is a mass outflow of people or exodus of people from Eritrea to the rest of the world. And Eritrea has been dubbed as one of the key refugee producers in terms of per capita. What's missing in most of the data is the internal migration that's taking place in Eritrea. Internal reports show that urbanization in Eritrea has increased significantly, and currently it is slightly above 61%. There are also people that say is close to 70%. But these figures could be misleading because they are without considering the internal migration, mass migration that's taking place in the country. It would be very difficult to understand the urbanization that's taking place as a whole. Urbanization is increasing throughout the world, but most of it is due to the voluntary movement of people from rural areas to urban areas, because urban areas provide more opportunity, or currently they are increasingly providing more opportunities to citizens. If you look at Eritrea, there are only two regions that have where the population has increased significantly, and this is happening in the central region where the capital city Asmara is located, and the other region is the Gashbarka region. The rest of the Zobas, the four remaining Zobas, they have faced significant decline in population. The significant increase in Asmara is related to because whatever development in Eritrea is taking place in Asmara, there is a service sector, but also the small industry sector is located in Asmara. In addition to Asmara, the Gashbarka region has seen increase in population for two reasons. First of all, is the center, the core area of the militarization in the country. That's where Sawa is located, and also the activities that are related to the militarization also take place mostly are taking place in the Kashbarka region. In addition, there is some development in the region. This is related to the creation of the new dams and also development in the agricultural sector, because that's the breadbasket of Eritrea. So, to sum up, local communities or rural communities in Eritrea that were already vulnerable have become more vulnerable, and they have faced mass migration because they are not the areas they live or the regions are not stable enough for rural communities to live their life. And also, like most of Eritrea, now rural communities have become highly dependent on remittances. And if you are dependent on remittance, then you might as well migrate or move to the urban areas like Asmara and consume whatever sent from outside from your children that are in the diaspora. This is in relation to mostly in relation to rural population that are dependent on crop production or mixed farming, crop production, and also livestock production. But if you look at the coastal areas, it's not different. The coastal areas are probably more vulnerable than the rest of the country. Naturally, they are dependent on fisheries and also trade across the Red Sea, and both economic activities have been hampered significantly by the political situation in the country. I'd like to say a little bit about the community-based approach. If you look at traditional conservation or traditional management of protected areas, most of them were top-down. They were controlled by governments, initiated by governments, run by governments, and local communities had no say. But now conservation or local development in general has moved from that traditional top-down approach, and inclusion of local communities has become is at the center of any local development. So the principle of community-based approach or considers local participation as the main criterion, but also it considers the rights, empowerment, and also equitable benefits of local communities. By rights, we mean that local communities have the right to own and control their livelihoods. This could be related to land, related to coastal resources, and so on and so forth. So local communities are empowered to own and also manage their own livelihoods. And also, if there is a development taking place in the area, then they also have the right to get benefit from whatever development is taking place. But naturally, local communities, although they have traditional knowledge and skills that are relevant to their area, some of the skills could be limiting their involvement in their regional or local development. For example, local communities have local organization, but their organization is not strong enough to affect what's happening at a national level. So, and also some of the knowledge is relevant only to local situation, while, for example, local conservation, RD-based or village-based conservation could be important for the local communities. It might not match modern conservation. For example, if one has to protect a certain population of wildlife, let's say a population of lion, the range area that the lions need is generally greater than what the villagers could protect. So there is a limitation in that regard as well. Generally or traditionally, local development was dominated by government. Also, whatever development takes place involves the private sector who work in tandem with the government, and there is also donor interests, and local communities are not able to contest with these strong groups of government, private sector, and international donors. Um, Whatever success in conservation there is now is absolutely linked to community capacity building. Where you have stronger community, there is also stronger outcome in terms of local development, whether it is tourism development, whether it is farming, modern agriculture, or conservation. There is a strong outcome when there is a strong community involved. Back to the two parks, this map shows the two areas. The Dahalak Marine National Park includes the main island in the Dahalak archipelago, Dahalak Kabir, and small islands around surrounding the Dahalak Kabir. While the Saminau Bahari National Park is located, it starts a little bit on the eastern outskirts of Asmara, and then it includes almost all the eastern escarpment and reaches closer to the coastal areas in Massawa, or the northern part of the Red Sea. As mentioned earlier, the study objective is to evaluate the park effectiveness in terms of conservation and livelihoods outcomes. How do they affect conservation? Also, how do they affect local communities? And the other objective is to promote inclusive and sustainable conservation policies through the involvement of local communities. And finally, is to encourage integrated approach to resource management instead of top-down government-dominated approach to resource management. Integrated approach that include local communities and the government and other stakeholders are more productive than the ones that are only managed by governments. The research methods employed were two types. First of all, I did research review on resource management in general in Eritrea, but also looked at the laws and policies of the government in terms of resource management, conservation, local development, and so on. The focus of this study is on local community engagement in resource management. This is a practice, but also evaluation of the national laws and proclamations and whether they consider the rights of local populations or local communities or not. The focus included four areas. The first one was the legal and policy frameworks, and I evaluated whether community land and resource rights were considered and when these national parks were established, and whether there was power devolution and participatory governance, whether local communities were allowed to influence decision, but also participate in the management or in the governance of the parks. The second aspect was the capacity building, whether communities were supported to be involved in the establishment and also management of the national parks. As I said earlier, many local communities have lower capacity. They have the skills and knowledge, traditional skills and traditional knowledge, but they also fall short in terms of modern management or to engage in modern management. For example, their organization doesn't allow them to participate in large projects like the one that we have mentioned. And the third aspect was whether there were incentives for conservation. Naturally, one of the natural outcomes or that comes with conservation is there is opportunity for tourism, and it's one of the outcomes. And so I checked if local community had the opportunity to get involved in tourism or not. Sometimes tourism could come as an opportunity as a byproduct of conservation, but sometimes also there is active tourism that is involved or active development that could come from conservation. And sometimes it's necessary for local communities to be excluded from the conservation areas, because if the conservation involves important habitats and important species, there is a possibility that these conservation areas could be no-take areas, or they could be they could involve exclusion of local communities. In that case, if communities are driven out of their homes and villages just for the sake of conservation, then it's important that they get compensation that is equivalent to the loss of opportunities. So I checked if there was compensation given to local communities. And then the fourth aspect was if there were other partnerships. As I said earlier, local communities should be at the center of conservation, but due to the limited capacity of local communities, but also limited capacity of governments, Usually, land conservation involves international stakeholders. This could be NGOs, it could be private sector, local and international. And these are involved in the technical support. This NGOs and the private sector could be involved in supporting the local community technically, materially, so on and so forth. So the results are divided into two. One is on aspects of the national laws and regulations, and also the policy framework, and the conservation in Eritrea, like most natural resource related development projects, is underpinned by the land proclamation of 1994. Although the proclamation was specifically on land, um, if you look at the practice of the government, it also extends to marine resource. So it includes all natural resources, whether on land or underwater or shallow coastal areas. So citizens have only land use rights, but they don't own the land or the natural resources that are in their area. As a result, the management of these resources is done by government bodies. This could be government ministries or departments. I have mentioned it here, the Minister of Fisheries. But in addition to this ministry, when it comes to mining, the Minister of Land, Water and Mining is the key ministry that's involved. When it comes to wildlife management, it's the Minister of Agriculture through the Department of Wildlife. The land proclamation and policies of the government have been criticized. There are many publications on this area, and the general conclusion is that the laws and the policies, the laws of the country and the policies of the government are misaligned, or they don't consider the socio-cultural context of Eritrea, especially the rural communities. I've mentioned it earlier, rural communities in Eritrea have got rich traditional knowledge and skills on natural resource management, and by declaring land uh, to be under the government or under state, these laws also undermine the traditional tenure systems that exist in Eritrea, both land tenure systems, but also coastal and marine tenure systems. Supporters of the land proclamation state that it's important for land to be owned by the government or the state, because Eritrea, like many developing countries, has seen land degradation, and this land degradation cannot be rehabilitated only through traditional tenure systems or traditional land management systems. So some of the arguments could be valid, but still it lacks grassroots participation. This proclamation was just an announcement by government. It was a top-down. It did not involve local communities. There was no local community consideration when it was announced. The other disadvantage is that there is no fiscal decentralization. Like the communities have no rights in terms of financial benefits from the developments that take place in their surroundings. As we know, at least theoretically, Eritrea is said to be a decentralized system where you have the 6 regions uh, 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 controlling or maintaining their own governance. But in practice, this doesn't work. It's all top down, it's controlled by the central government or by the president's office. So there is no decentralization when you consider the regions, but also there is no profit sharing by local communities as well. So everything is controlled by the government. Um, I think the motivation for the establishment of the national parks, I think, tells us something about the outcome as well. The Dahalak Marine National Park, at least when you compare the two parks, at least there was some preparation in terms of baseline surveys, for example, socioeconomic, ecological surveys in the Dahalak Marine National Park, while the Seminole Bahari National Park was established only through a presidential decree. There was no local consultation. There was no baseline surveys. Local communities were just told to leave the area, and that's how it happened. So, in terms of involvement in management, there is no local input during planning, design, implementation, monitoring. Local communities are just outside observers, so there is no involvement then in any aspect of the parks. In the Seminole Bahari, it involved forced displacement of local communities without compensation. Uh, so far, there is no significant effect on the local communities in the Dahalak, in the community that live in the surroundings of the Dahalak Marine National Park, and this is due to lack of enforcement, or there is weak enforcement. Um, in the Seminole Bahari National Park, presence of the military and also prisons restricts access, but also contributes to degradation of natural resources. At least there is one permanent division of the Eritrean army that stations in the Seminole Bahari National Park area. So due to this presence, uh, um, accessibility by civilians is limited. In addition, prisons like the Era Aero and are located within this park. So, and these are uh, and people are strictly prohibited from approaching these areas. So this also contributes to the protection of the park. But the military units also are involved in different activities that contribute to environmental degradation. For example, it's reported that military officers are involved in charcoaling, cutting trees to construct trenches Uh, in addition, I also heard that there is some horticultural activities. The military are also involved in their own horticultural activities. Although the local communities are driven out, the military units are able to practice agriculture within the park. In the Seminole Bahari National Park, there is severe livelihood loss because local communities were completely driven out of the area that they used to farm for generations. And as a result, this has uh, added to the use migration that's already there. And there is a distinct tradition in the area that's called the Adi Bahari traditions. People normally migrate or move between Adi and Bahari in the Seminole Bahari area, and this traditional system or that is deeply ingrained into the culture of the people has been destroyed. The communities enjoy two productive seasons. The summer, after the summer rains of the Adi region of the highlands, they would move to the Bahari and farm there and then enjoy the produce. So a lot of villages move to the Bahari area during this time of bounty or when there is plenty of harvest in the Bahari region. As mentioned earlier, the Dahlak Marsh Marine National Park management is not enforced yet, but and local communities are still I know local communities are still practicing fishing in the area, but if management is enforced, then this local communities would be stopped from fishing or from using their uh, resources. And for coastal communities that are already marginalized and also that have become vulnerable and poor, this would have significant effects on their lives. Now, I'd like to read to you a paragraph from the book of Rezenetus Fashion, who originally hails from the Seminawi Bahari area and who is knowledgeable, and his relatives have suffered due to the introduction of the Seminole Bahari National Park. Rezenes says this: the announcement was made on Monday and Tuesday, and by Friday, my relatives were ordered to leave with all their livestock and belongings. They were given less than a week to vacate and were strictly forbidden from returning. Realizing they had no other choice, they sold their livestock at the local market on Saturday and returned to their ancestral homes, only to find themselves curled up in their moss, weighed down by uncertainty and despair. Our people had welcomed Eritrea's independence with open hearts, working tirelessly to rebuild their lives. The improvements were evident. Diasporic relatives invested in modern farming and tourism, and overall living conditions had improved. However, since the sudden displacement, many of the youth have migrated, leaving behind a community fractured by uncertainty and loss. Conclusions. Conservation and community livelihood are not mutually exclusive. Modern conservation practice have taught us that local development and conservation can go hand in hand. If local communities are involved and if they are supported, if they are compensated for the loss, and also if they get a share from any development that's taken place in their surrounding, whether it's mining, whether it's industrial development, whether it's farming or livestock investment, local communities must be involved in whatever happening. So this is not a secret that Eritrea's top-down model has alienated rural populations, and this has resulted in more vulnerability and destitution, and also further outward migration, and also internal rural urban migration within the country. I would say in the Seminole Bahari National Park, conservation is used to justify land appropriation, or what's ecologically, or what conservationists call green grabbing, because what's taking place in the Seminole Bahari National Park is beyond conservation. As I said earlier, there is still environmental degradation taking place through the activities of the military. There is farming taking place. Military units are involved in farming. So I think conservation is not. We can conclude that conservation is not the sole aim of the establishment of the Seminole Bahari National Park. Key recommendations: integrate community participation in all conservation stages, from planning, design, implementation, monitoring, and so on. And also amend or change the land and resource laws and government policies to include community rights. And then implement public-private community partnerships. As I said earlier, communities might not have enough capacity, but they could be supported through public-private community partnerships. Sometimes it's not necessary for local communities to be excluded from areas where there is protection. The protection areas could be divided in a way that where you have no-take areas where local communities, where there is no access by local communities or anybody else. Or they could also be involved in mixed use. You could have seasonal closures. You could have area closures where local communities could practice some livelihood activities. For example, they could be allowed to farm, but not cut trees or not hunt any wildlife and things like that. Link to number 3, you could leverage external partnership where governments and local communities do not have the capacity to support local communities in local development. Then the private sector, NGOs, local and international, could be involved in capacity building of local communities. Support could be technical, it could be material, it could be anything. So the final thoughts are promote inclusive governance for both biodiversity and social resilience. Eritrea must transition from exclusionary to participatory conservation development for long-term sustainability. Thank you very much.